Welcome back to an episode of the Commuters. This time there will only be two of us, Basil and
Spencer.
Yes, I was going to say your name wrong again. As you can see, we're a little sparse today, but doesn't mean we're not going to have as good as an episode. In fact, it might even be more efficient. It will be more efficient.
Ouch. You're calling our friends inefficient?
No, I'm saying when you only have two people, it's mad efficient because you're only talking about we can only go on so long talking.
Yeah, two people is mad efficient.
But yeah, do you want to talk about what we're talking about today?
Well, today's episode is going to be about Titanic. That was a joke.
Oh, I get you're a real joker.
It's going to be the Joker.
It's so awful, isn't it?
And so we know we're super late to the party, but we're going to talk about the Joker, considering it's now a $1 billion grossing movie, and I guess apparently it was pretty big thing. Anyways, we've both seen it, and yeah, so I feel like we should just kind of dive right into this one.
Yeah.
So the Joker, 2019 movie starring Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck, Affleck for short. Is a movie that takes place in the 80s in Gotham, and it tells the origin of the Joker. Obviously, most people probably are aware of this, but the plot is pretty simple. It's essentially a lone man's drop into madness because of outside and inside influences in his life, and a bunch of terrible things that happened to him and happened because of him. You got Joaquin Phoenix, directed by Todd Phillips, his first movie since the Hangover movies, I believe. So yeah, that's an interesting change up there for them. Who else is in this movie? You got what's his name? Who's the talk show host in this movie? Robert De Niro.
Yep.
From Taxi Driver, which this movie takes a lot of influences from. Mm-hmm. And who else? I'm trying to think of any other famous people. You got Zazie Beetz, actress from Deadpool. Mm-hmm. She was in this.
And she was his neighbor, yes. Correct? Yep. I'm trying to remember her name, her character's name.
Can't remember really anyone else. Sophia.
Was it? Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
But yeah, so it was a long time coming movie. It had a lot of hype building up to it. There were a lot of controversy around, oh, this might cause a shooting and stuff. Spoiler, it didn't. Yeah, so that's the Joker.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I would say too, kind of as a caveat, that it is sadly kind of another Batman origin story, because they did have, they tied in. Not Bruce. Is it Charles? Charles Wayne? His father?
No, Thomas Wayne.
Thomas. I always get his dad's name wrong. But I did like that they kind of played around with the character of Thomas Wayne, how he's not exactly, obviously Thomas Wayne is kind of a rich elite character, and
yes.
you wouldn't really consider him to be like a people's hero,
If I may, This isn't your dad's Thomas Wayne.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
Get it?
That was the episode. We'll see you next week.
Well, I mean, because the Thomas Wayne we're usually introduced to is this benevolent, nice guy who's trying to help out the city and do all these charity foundations from the Dark Knight trilogy. That's the Thomas Wayne we had there.
He's less of a rich man and more of a philanthropist kind of character, but this really, really did touch upon the idea of a class inequity and, class warfare.
Yeah.
Because that's how the movie ends, basically. It's just a big riot between all of the kind of fans of Joker wanting anarchy and justice and kind of this convoluted sense of revenge and justice all worked around into the same thing. Vengeance, one might call it.
Yeah.
Justice and vengeance. Be nice if they had a superhero that would come along and kind of be intertwined with that. Oh wait, they make one in the movie.
Yeah. But yeah, that's really a small part of the movie.
It's not big.
That's a part that really bothers me about it, actually, because I would have liked this movie more if it didn't have any Batman references at all. Yeah. And not to say that it can't be about the Joker, but I mean, it doesn't have to have Thomas Wayne. It doesn't have to have, or if it does, you don't have to have that. There's a whole subplot.
I think it would have been completely fine for me if. You remember there's a scene in the movie where they're coming home, the riot is happening, and Thomas Wayne and everyone, his wife and his son are coming out of the movie theater. They just went and saw Zorro, so it was the movie that obviously creates Batman. and you see somebody dip into the alley wearing a mask with a gun. I think that would have been the perfect cutaway, but they go in depth and show the whole thing. You know, you get to see
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. That leads me to another thing. I'm going to segue with that. So had they did a cutaway when they walked behind that alley, the entire audience knows what was going to happen.
Yeah.
They didn't need to show us to it. This is my biggest issue with this movie. It's my issue with the director is there is no subtlety in this movie at all. It is one of the most on-the-nose, like, plot. There's many plot points in this movie that have no subtlety at all.
Right.
Another example is early in the movie, there's a whole romantic tryst with Sophia in the movie, and we find out she isn't. None of that actually happened. It was all in his head. The way we find out it's all in his head, though, is he shows up, soaking wet in her apartment, and she walks in and she's like, "Oh, hey, are you that guy from down the hallway?" And then immediately,
She doesn't even remember his name. She goes,
immediately,
"Your name's Arthur, right?"
As the audience, right then you know all of that stuff never happened.
Yeah, but then they force feed you it. And
then they
spoon feed you
do
every
what
scene.
they do is, I think it's Fight Club or whatever that does it. They do a flashback sequence where they show you every single scene they were in together and how she wasn't really there. And it was like, that was so on the nose. It's like, we all knew immediately what happened. And then you just spent 5 minutes wasting my time.
Right, because I don't have any problem with a movie that's super heavy-handed with plot points and motif and everything. You know, that's an art style that maybe I like a little bit more nuance in my things normally, but I think it served the Joker really well just because of its comical sense of justice and kind of just a very binary good and evil, influences around it. I think it was fine for them to have very heavy-handed, like, plot strokes.
Yeah.
But I agree that could have been completely taken out.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have changed. It would have made the scene, I think, in my opinion,
concise.
more heavy-hitting. And, maybe some people wouldn't have understood. Well, you know what? Not everybody's smart.
Not everyone's
and
gonna
can
get
catch
the
on
joke.
clear. But yeah, so that's actually a lot of. I mean, there's a lot about subtlety. The whole class warfare thing and the whole class commentary is super on the nose. There's pretty much no subtlety. Not to say it's necessarily a bad thing. Like, it doesn't ruin the movie for me.
How did you feel about the whole kind of plot point that, at least in his own mind, with his mom's narrative, that Arthur Fleck was Bruce Wayne's stepbrother, and the fact that he may have been related to Thomas Wayne? I know we find out later on in the movie that his mom was crazy and she kind of fabricated this whole narrative to kind of fit her delusions.
Yes.
But
I like the idea.
Sequence,
I like the idea in this movie that crazy. Well, one, maybe he is Bruce Wayne's brother. Maybe he isn't. Maybe this all happened in his head. Maybe it didn't. That's one thing I do like about the script of this movie is that. I mean, and you could argue it's a get out of jail free card. The only thing that ruins it for me is the whole Batman sequence, the Batman origin story, because that pretty much means that the movie has to have had happened in order to make Batman. And now you can't just say, oh, it was all in his head, maybe.
now, do you think this is going to tie in with the new Robert Pattinson Batman?
I hope it does, but I don't think it will. But it did make $1 billion, so there is no way in this world that Warner Brothers, well, one, they're going to be jumping all over their properties looking to make crazy art films like this, which I hope it should be a good thing. Two, yes, they're going to be begging Joaquin Phoenix to come back and do this again.
And speaking of which, I think we should talk a little bit just about his acting portrayal as a whole.
Oh, yeah. Well, how did you feel about Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker?
I thought originally when I saw the casting, I was super excited because I've loved all of his performances with her and in Spartacus. I've been a very big fan of his work. Plus, with just his personal backstory and history, there's a lot of things that really show that he is, perfect for this role. He's got a lot of background in kind of a rocky upbringing, with mental
weird,
and
mentally deranged characters who have this kind of. I mean, I don't think there's an actor who pulls off creepy as good as Joaquin Phoenix. My first experience with Joaquin Phoenix is Gladiator. He plays as what's his name?
the Emperor.
Well, the Emperor's son who murders the Emperor becomes the Emperor. He was creepy in that movie, because he's in love with his sister and stuff, and it's.
Well, they were Romans,
Yeah, but the way he plays it, and you're like, oh, this is just uncomfortable, and it's that. Honestly, I don't think I've seen him in a movie since that. I have never seen Her, and I've never seen a couple of his other bigger roles.
Definitely see Her because it's
See who?
Her.
Who's that?
The movie, die. In that movie, he does a really good job of playing someone who's kind of as socially awkward as Arthur, but he's not a creepy guy. He's not a weirdo. You know, he's just kind of lonely. But he plays these very wounded, vulnerable characters really well, which I think is why he made such a good Joker in the first place.
For sure.
Is because he was able to just really channel. My favorite portrayal of his in the movie is really the first half of the movie. You know, it's so it's so painfully just awkward and nuanced, and the little touch with the card.
Yeah, well, I was about to go into that. I love the touch that his laugh is like, he can't physically respond to emotion. He has a dysfunction where the way he responds to emotions is by laughing.
Well, that's not exactly how it works. It's a traumatic response to where any kind of strong awkwardness or like any kind of triggering.
Well, in the movie, the explanation they give you is this is how he responds to very like anger or sadness or happiness. He responds to all of it by laughing really hard and very loud and uncomfortably. But there's two laughs he has. He has that laugh, and then he has his fake laugh.
Yeah.
Because Arthur is not on the same plane as anyone else when it comes to what he finds funny. So like you see it, like there's a famous part they use in the trailer where he's walking out of the hallway and he's like ha ha ha, and then just stops laughing. Because he was laughing at another guy's joke, but he didn't think it was funny, but he was laughing because other people were laughing.
Exactly.
And my favorite scene in this entire movie is when Arthur's in the club and he's like writing notes and he's watching people's comedy routines, and the camera starts in this wide shot, just slowly zooms in on him as this dude does his comedy routine. The audience laughs. Then as he's silent in between the jokes, Arthur laughs. Then he tells a joke, audience laughs. Then Arthur laughs when nobody else is laughing. This whole thing plays out, and it's so like it gives you a complete understanding of this dude is not on the same plane of reality as anyone else.
Well, if you notice too, it's not that it's silent, but he's in the middle of a joke and he's delivering the setup, you know, because there's it's like volleyball when you're doing a serve. You know, you got to throw it up before you can spike it down.
Yeah.
He laughs in the moment at which he's setting up a joke. You know, Arthur is either too quick to the beat or too late on it. Either or. Yeah, exactly. It shows that he's got a disconnect from everybody else in the comedy scene. What I really like is the zoom in as he's writing in his notebook, the little cliff notes that he's taking of comedy, because it's so deranged. You know, you can just from these little insights into his mind see that he really has no idea of the social concepts behind comedy.
He doesn't understand at all what's funny to people or what makes something funny to people. You can see he's trying to be like, oh, so making fun of women or something or whatever. I can't remember what the joke was, like what he wrote, and he's like, oh wait, this is funny.
The guy told a joke about like sex in cars.
Yeah, so he's like sex in cars.
Always funny.
And so like he has this complete disconnect from reality, and I mean, Joaquin Phoenix does such a good job of portraying that. And I mean, one thing to point out is this.
Of the dance too. The dance. And, like the weird.
Okay.
Movements.
I think there's a little too much of it, but I like it because I like that after he has these great moments in his life, he dances to himself like a weirdo. And I think if it wasn't Joaquin Phoenix, who's with his weird, skinny, angular body selling it, I probably would think it's really dumb. But like he makes you buy it. Yeah. But I did want to point out real quick that the cinematography in this movie is absolutely amazing. It's beautifully shot, beautiful. The color work, it's an amazing looking film, and that alone to me is like. Because one thing I complain about a lot in movies is a lot of flat, boring shooting, where it's like, oh, this is like a TV show, a shot, reverse shot. But this movie was like, no, we're gonna go crazy with color, with the different angles, with getting really nice, strong framing and focused, razor thin focus.
And especially with the colors too, the color grading in the movie. Did you notice it was progressive and directly tied to his sanity?
Well, because and like if you noticed in the beginning, it's very gray and very boring and bland.
Taking his medication, he's suppressing everything.
And then as it goes on, he starts to get a little crazier, and it starts to get a little more colorful. You know, some orange thrown in there with the blue and like.
And it's not all what do you call it? Post-production in that, you know, it's not like they're literally just turning the color up. It's in the way that they shoot and add color to the scene. Yeah.
At the end, the last shot of the movie with him on the car. Well, not the last shot of the movie, but one of the last shots of the movie with him on the car, and he has the blood. That's like the most colorful shot in the whole movie. You have the entire crowds and the fires, and he's like, and it's a beautiful shot. I mean, it's all over the internet now, but yeah, it's an amazing looking film, which is something I'm like, okay, this movie just made $1 billion and it looks breathtaking. Hopefully this allows for more cinematographers. I mean, you have your Roger Deakins and stuff, but I mean, a Roger Deakins-led movie like Blade Runner, which is an absolutely beautiful movie, barely made any money. Yeah. But then you throw Joker's name on something and...
Yep, it's all marketing.
Oh, man.
But anyways, speaking of shots, what would you say is your favorite shot?
Of the film? Oh, I told you. It's the shot where it slowly zooms in.
Oh,
and they're laughing and they're jumping, and that's in the way you can't remember anyone else's faces in the crowd. You can only remember the Joker's face because he's the only one highlighted. Even though all those people are there, you can see them, but it's very well done. How about you?
I'd say my favorite scene in the movie is probably when it's a toss-up because there's so many good ones, but probably when he's dancing with himself in his apartment.
Yeah.
And kind of having this little internal narrative with himself, because it introduces the motif of the dancing, and it's right after he's picked up that handgun that the guy gave him.
I'll tell you what. Yes.
Because I'm a really good dancer.
Right? And I'll tell you what. The thing I liked about the dancing in it is it builds up to the moment, the iconic moment of this movie, which is him dancing down the stairs. And when that happens in the movie, it's so satisfying because it's like, dude, this dude's he's going at it. He's going balls to walls. He is the Joker now. And that's, in my opinion, when he becomes the Joker, is when he's dancing down the stairs.
I absolutely agree. I think we've really touched on
Yeah.
everything there is to talk
Now,
about.
obviously, this is going to be a shorter episode because there's only the two of us. So let's just give final verdict, shall we? I'll go first. So I don't always rate films, but I'm actually going to rate this one. Okay. And I think it's going to be a little... I've talked a lot about what I like, and there's some things that really bother me. I think it's a very, very good film, and I like the precedent it sets that you can do a little more crazy stuff with these characters. Unfortunately, the lack of nuance hurts it for me. I also think almost all my complaints go into the lack of nuance, and that's really my issues with any issues that I have with this movie all come back to the lack of nuance. So I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10. I'm closer to a 6 than a 7, closer to a 6 than an 8, but I'd say a 7 out of 10. It's a solid film that I liked a lot, but it has some issues that really bug me. Joaquin Phoenix's performance, though, is 100 out of 10. It's such a good job. He deserves a Best Actor nomination. Honestly, I mean, I haven't seen a couple other movies that have great performances this year, so I don't know what he's going up against, but he such a good job.
I absolutely agree. And I don't think, in my opinion, the heavy-handedness of the plot or shots or different elements like that really hurt the movie, just because I knew it was going to be that coming into it. You know, I wasn't expecting a Christopher Nolan, with subtle
but they kind of
things.
marketed it. Like,
I don't know. I knew what I was getting into going in, and I wasn't disappointed at all by it. Like you said, Joaquin Phoenix did a beautiful job. The supporting cast was all fantastic,
True. Yeah.
I think that they did what a supporting cast is supposed to do, in that they gave a good enough framework for Joaquin to shine.
Yes.
They put him on a pedestal, basically. Just let him do his little hip thrust dance.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely see why this got an 8-minute standing ovation. Was it at the Vienna Film Festival?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh my God. Yeah, definitely. I'd give it a 9 out of 10, because I'm sure if I were to watch it again, I could find 1 or 2 things that I would have done differently.
Yeah.
Like we pointed out that there are some scenes that really just didn't need to be shown, like recaps or flashbacks, just things that could have been left as either subtly hinted to or directly implied.
Yeah. Also, the Batman thing kind of takes it down for me. Like,
yeah, I would have. I mean, with the movie called Joker.
Yeah.
I
get it. It's like, oh, of course Batman has, but do we have to literally have the origin with the pearls? Like, did we just saw this 2 years ago in freaking Batman v Superman?
I guess so.
Anyways,
Yep.
sorry.
But 9 out of 10.
That's the Joker. Thanks for joining us here on this shorter episode of the Commuters. Hope you guys have been enjoying those short films we've been doing. And then next week we'll have Sky and Will back. Next time. We're getting rave reviews on our short films by our moms. No, the last thing is the next episode we will be doing will be on the original Star Wars trilogy. So that is the next episode we're doing. We all agreed on this.
It'll be 3 movies, but 1 episode.
Yes, and then we will be doing the prequels, and then to hopefully coincide around the release of The Last Skywalker, or Last Skywalker, Rise of Skywalker. I don't even know the names of these. We'll do the new trilogy, and that way we'll be able to compare all 3 trilogies and the context of which they've come out and the movies before and after them. So we hope you guys stick around. We know we've been absent a ton, and we've really had a hard time making videos, but all 15 of you that are watching us, we appreciate it. And stay commuting.
Stick around for more Obi-Wan Kenobi memes.
Maya, you are a bold one.